Welcome to yet another truly cannot miss Saturday morning live afternoon edition with Sal Santori. And here in the studio, we have our great friend, Sergeant First Class Jordan Purcell, U.S. Army National Guard. And Jordan was kind enough to take some time today to come down and visit with us. And we're going to come right back to Sergeant First Class Purcell in just a minute, but I want to go ahead and welcome our greatest global family of all time. I'm having a heck of a day today. The PTSD is just like saying, you know what, you can't do this. And I'm saying, oh, yeah, I am. So they're saying, let's give you a whole bunch of static in your brain so you really can't focus. But I definitely want to welcome our global greatest of all time family of viewers and listeners. And today, obviously, I'm telling you, we have another truly great show. And as always, we begin by welcoming our newest community partners, along with our new family members. And I'm truly amazed each week at how we come up, and it's like the week comes around and you know what we have new family members, we have new community partners, and it's just amazing. This week's show is sponsored by Grade A Holloway. Um, our friend Adam. There you go, Grade A Holloway. Right, and this was not pre-planned, ladies and gentlemen. This was not. Um, but that just lets you know how prevalent Adam and Grade A Holloway is in the community. It's like he's a wonderful guy. He's very gregarious, very sincere, and very hardworking. So if you have anything from rubbish or debris for removal, or you want to have something uh, demoed, like some folks want to get a new deck, right? Well, what's the first thing you do? You've got to get rid of the existing one. Oh, yeah. So they'll come in and they'll demo it and they'll take it away for you as well. Um, Very reasonable pricing. And you want to give Grade A Holloway a call at 717-571-5430. Again, that number is 717-571-5430. And give them a call today and mention hearing this on the show. And Adam will go ahead and invoice me for 10% to give you a nice listener discount, family discount. And obviously, veterans, active duty, first responders, and senior citizens are all included, for preferred rates. Absolutely. And the service is second to none. Service is always on active duty.
Yeah, absolutely.
I came up with that myself.
Oh, yeah. There you go. And you may even see me out there helping at him.
Hey, there you go.
There you go. The face for radio.
That's
out in person.
Yeah, I got all of this guy. And our newest community partner, now Adam's sponsoring the show. So our newest community partner is Shaler Brewing Company down in Reading, Pennsylvania. Lucan is a fantastic guy. In addition to their great food, and Jordan and I went down for a visit this past week to say hi. And great food, beverages. The staff there are fantastic. Huh?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yep.
Yeah. And then we took a little walk around and discovered this huge deck in the back, which is like beautiful, outdoor, spacious. The tables were nicely spaced. They weren't like, we'll crowd 50 people in here by putting the tables right next to each other. It was really good. And Lucan is also a veteran. So Shaler's is veteran owned, and we can't encourage folks strongly enough, to visit our family, our community partners that are veteran owned, especially. It's like we're all pulling in the same direction. And we also want to let you know that Shaler's has an event schedule that's already pretty well filled for this year, I believe, when I saw it. Yeah,
something almost every day.
Yeah. So we're definitely gonna get down there and visit and do some shows from there. And invite folks down. You can find Shaler's on Facebook. You can also find Grade A Holloway on Facebook. And this is a point where I'm absolutely even more thrilled again, Jordan. I get to welcome another family member into our family, our global greatest of all time family of listeners and viewers. And when I say global, I really mean it. We have listeners over in the Philippines, in Yemen, uh, in Uganda, and I believe it or not, I actually got an email a few months back from somebody in Russia, in Moscow, asking me if I could put some Michael Jackson music on for her. I was like, "Are you kidding me?" I said, this has to be some kind of bot.
Yeah.
And I was like, but no, sure enough, a lot of they picked us up over in Moscow, and I was like, okay, spies, spies. They know us in the Cold War.
Yeah.
They're still after me.
We see you. We see you.
Yeah. Yeah. Uh, but today I get to welcome someone from Miami.
Lovely.
Miami, Florida. Yeah, beautiful. Of course, we're coast to coast. We have folks out in Baja California, and Oregon, and LA, and all over, in New York. And now we're welcoming. Yeah, we're welcoming someone from Miami, Florida. Her name is Natalie. Wonderful lady. Wonderful lady. I got to chat with her a little bit. Um, and she's an entrepreneur. She's an entrepreneur. And what she does is she creates beauty products, um, exquisite beauty products that are available in only like the finest of stores
Okay.
in Miami and a few other cities. So she's got a very limited availability. The product is that high quality.
Absolutely.
So it's like really fantastic. So Natalie, thank you so much for joining our family. And I'm sure at some point I'll get to give folks a little bit of a view of some of the things that you create. And we're just really glad that that you decided to join our family here. And without further ado, I want to get into discussion with Sergeant First Class Purcell. Um, One of the things, this is going to probably be like a 4-part series. I forgot it was live. My face. It's okay, man. You heard it here live. You got to see it. Now you understand, folks, that is why I stayed in radio for 10 years. People were saying, bring that radio face out. We want to see it. And I'm like, no, no, no. Well, now we just got to see why. A nice little clip of why.
I resemble that remark.
Right. So Sergeant First Class Purcell has quite the resume, quite the involvement and contributions, not just in the military and in training and in getting our folks ready and our troops medically prepared, but also in the civilian world the whole time you've been, enlisted. And am I correct? It's been like 21 years of active duty.
That is correct, sir. Yes, almost joined 2 weeks after 9/11, and deployed. And then shortly after I got back, I started my career, my career that is now coming to an end with me retiring. But yeah, a little over 21 years. So wonderful. Served with a lot of great people, and in the military and even the civilian side. The first aid and safety right here out of beautiful Lebanon, Pennsylvania.
Okay.
I ran crew with them. Outstanding individuals there as well. Yeah, I feel like I've accomplished a lot in 21 years, and I just had a birthday, the big 4-1, and ready to start the second half and see what we can do.
Wow.
So, yeah.
Wow, yeah.
Absolutely.
I remember when I turned 41, last year.
Oh, that's true. Yeah, we share the same birthday, right?
We do, right?
Yeah,
Every year it comes around.
Adjoining hospital bed.
There you go. Yeah.
Cribs, yeah.
He yelled mommy, and my mom goes, what?
It's true, folks. It's true. You heard it here first.
That's right. We went to different schools together,
Mm-hmm.
lived in opposite cities growing up together.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. What is this, Jordan? What is this all about?
This
here?
whole thing. Oh, look at that right there.
I mean, the military, we move on our stomach, yes, but we also cannot wake up to do that without our coffee.
That is correct. Yeah.
And this, folks, is called Vets Brew. And it was the brainchild of us right here at the Kazern Community and Veterans Outreach. And this is brewed, this is our exclusive brand. And the whole purpose behind it is that proceeds go to supporting Project Intervene, which Adam is a supporter of. And these are the beautiful, beautiful, even more handsome than my radio face. These shirts are that nice. But you see them, they're black with the gold lettering. And then we have the sponsors on the back. But the whole mission is veteran suicide intervention, prevention, and healing. So we have the coffee here, and we have that in the. This is a 12-ounce bag. We also have the K cups. We have them available in the K cup as well. And those, see, I'm getting pretty good. I'm able to read backwards and how to balance things. Pretty good. It takes 30 years for most guys. I'm doing it in 50. I'm good. But there you have it. We have a light, medium, and dark roast. You can get this in whole bean or ground. And we also have this coffee pot is a retro type coffee pot. It's one of the basket type uh, beautiful coffee pots, never been used. And this was donated to us by my good friend. And also, we served in the same unit pretty much at the same time. I was in Charlie Company. Thank you, Jordan.
Absolutely.
I was in Charlie Company. He was in Bravo Company over in Berlin. But his name is Willie, and he's a fantastic guy. And after being out of the military so long, we actually reconnected here at the farmers market. And he's just a great guy, great guy. So he's part of our family as well. So thank you for tuning in and viewing with us and listening. And another thing I want to highlight here is our sheepskin motorcycle seat covers, and these are amazing. Okay, they're great. They're great in the winter, of course, but also in the summer because if you ever ridden a bike that sat out in the sun, the seat will like burn you when you first sit on it. Whereas if you have a nice genuine sheepskin cushion cover, you're not going to experience that.
Absolutely.
Unless you wear it out. You've had it for 50 years. You don't want to replace it because you're a diehard. All of a sudden you go and you sit down, you find out where the thin spots are.
Exactly.
Yes, it's in a little different light.
Absolutely. Yeah.
But these are made locally in Pennsylvania by my great friend Pat Garrett, and obviously you will know him not only from his music and the amphitheater, but also from the Pat Garrett Sheepskin Outlet in Strausstown, Pennsylvania. So thank you, Pat. Thank you to Cleona Coffee Roasters because Matt and company are the ones who roast the beans to make our coffee. And they are located in the 911 Rapid Response Complex on Route 422 in Annville. And I believe, if memory serves me correctly, beginning in May, we're going to be broadcasting from there when we're not doing our shows, which brings me to just one more point before I really get into Jordan and his career, and we talk about the out processing, the exiting the service, which he is doing now. So we want to really take a look at that process and find out, okay, in real time, exactly how does this work. But I just want to mention that our time here at the market is coming to a close as the end of April. May picks up our summer classic car shows and hot rod shows throughout the summer, and we'll be traveling to various car shows. And one of our big sponsors in that is the Farrows Car Club in Lebanon, the Lebanon Farrows Car Club. So we'll be traveling around. So we'll be broadcasting when we're not at our summer series of car shows. We'll be doing broadcasting from the 911. So we'll be over there and we'll say hi to Matt and all the folks over there. So thank you for your support and for your consistent appreciation. We really need it, welcome it, and we're glad to have you. Without you, we would not have a show. So Jordan, let me ask you this: what initially propelled you to decide to join the military?
Well, great question, Sal. Thank you for asking. 17 years old, senior in high school. I was in third period when 9/11 happened.
Okay.
2 weeks later, I was in the military. So talked to some of my friends, and they said, I guess we're doing this. So a sense of patriotism, sense of duty. I was signing up for selective service in less than a year anyway. So I wanted to try to
Right.
control my own destiny with that. And again, can't say enough good things about the Pennsylvania Army National Guard or the Pennsylvania National Guard as a whole, because we have the Air Guard as well, of course. But tremendous benefits. I knew what I was getting into, so I'd be lying if I didn't say that there was many benefits that I was able to take advantage of. But it was definitely the sense of patriotism, the sense of community. Who knew what was going to happen? And we all know the 20-year global war on terror. So it was a time. It was definitely a time, and calling. God had a plan for me, and so did Uncle Sam. So
Right.
two of my favorite guys, aside from you, of course, Sal. So,
Absolutely, right?
so, yes.
Great. Yeah, 9/11 was kind of like a huge punch in the mouth. And, everybody said, we're Americans. We don't just accept that,
Correct.
so we definitely went on the offensive. And without take us forward from there. Because like you mentioned, the 20-year war on terror.
Mhm.
And now we're through that. And am I understanding your history to include like medical training, the ability to train our other troops as well? Or
That is correct. So I did get my start at the Lebanon Armory right next to the DMV with the 28th. I think they're the 28th Financial Management Battalion now. So got my start there. So my mom, that was the only thing she was willing to sign was finance.
Okay.
So, and again, I was a business, college prep kid, Cedar Crest High School, class of 2002. But I quickly knew after my deployment, I deployed December of 03 and demobbed February of 05. But I
now
quickly,
let me
Of course,
just for our civilians, what the demobbed.
of course, yes,
Mhm.
certainly. Military jargon. There's an
Right.
acronym for that. So the demobilization process. So
Okay.
there's the mobilization process where you go through your soldier readiness checks, and in 03, it was still very new. A lot of people hadn't deployed yet. The active duty had, but I would say we were probably one of the first guard units. So we had to get mobilized. We had to get trained. Beautiful Fort Dix, New Jersey in the winter. So the mobilization process, getting you ready, and of course demobilization, transitioning back from traditional active duty back to being the proverbial weekend warrior.
Okay.
So all of your medical screenings, behavioral health screenings, TBI screenings, all of that had a traumatic brain injury, TBI, for those that aren't familiar. So they wanted to make sure we were returned in somewhat good shape to resume our lives, especially me, a 20-year-old kid, through the demobilization process. So.
Looking back, now I went in when I was 17, so it's like, I look back and it's like, wow, did this kid really do this?
Certainly.
And the reality of it is, we are kids. We are kids. The military makes its choices, for very specific reasons. As far as why the young are chosen.
Mhm.
And we'll save that for another day. But looking back now, looking back now, how are you relating to that young kid?
Great question, Sal. So as I'm preparing for retirement, and again, I know you're a very behavioral health, mental health forward. I am too. Degree in psychology. I've been talking to some therapists, and making sure that, just like the demob process, that I'm returned back to the civilian world in an efficacious manner, an effective manner. So I've been looking at that kid a lot, the 17-year-old, the missed opportunities. My friends went to senior week. I went to boot camp. So
Right, yeah.
My peers were in college. I was in the desert. So looking at a lot of those things, because the military, as you can surmise, it's usurped most of my life, pretty much the entirety of my adult life to date. So talking to people, making sure making sure there's an ounce of prevention. As they say, the great Ben Franklin quote, ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. And you had said about the medical training, which I'm sure we'll talk about, but it's better to make sure a problem doesn't start before you're trying to alleviate the problem. So,
you and I had a conversation earlier in the week, which was like very revealing to me. And we talked about your frontal lobe and the development and the age. And, I realized the effects of it, but I never realized, I was never able to say why.
Certainly.
I felt the how, but I never understood the why. And you made beautiful sense. Can we talk about that now?
Absolutely.
Because it's like so important. And I think the reason it's so important is because a lot of folks are going to begin to understand a lot more about themselves and get the why.
Certainly.
Yeah. You mentioned something about the development. Let me take just a second. We have our studio audience. We have a veteran by the name of Clem, and Clem is a Vietnam veteran, and he has chosen to join us today. Hey, Clem. Clem has chosen to join us today for the show and be in the studio audience, which is beautiful. It's brilliant. Thank you, Clem. And I really just want to take a minute to really, Clem, I appreciate you, brother.
Okay.
Yeah. I'm glad you're home.
All right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Everybody said that to me, but my father. It was like, you're back.
They're definitely welcome home, Clem. And as Sal had said last week, the Vietnam Veterans Remembrance. So thank you for what you do. Absolutely. And of course, today being the Gold Star Spouses Day.
Yes.
So thank you to everyone listening, and for those that have lost a loved one as a spouse, to preserve our freedom. Absolutely. But you had mentioned about the prefrontal cortex, the frontal lobe.
Right. Okay.
So we can talk about that. I'm no expert on the subject. I did get my undergrad in psychology. Again, like you said about the 17-year-old, better understanding Jordan. But yeah, the brain is not done developing. It varies men and women. Women, as we know, are more mature, so they mature a little faster. They start puberty earlier. But in the 20s, like early to mid 20s, is not until our prefrontal cortex is truly done developing.
So now, we go in when we're like 17 is the earliest.
That is correct. Yes.
Okay. A lot of enlistments are 3 years?
3, 4 years. Yeah, active duty, I believe 3 or 4 years. I know National Guard, Reserve side, I believe it's 6x2 for your mandatory service obligation.
Right.
So
the point I wanted to make is, when we're 17, we're active duty, and that's not developed completely until 20. What have we done to our brain in those 3 years?
So it's said that if you want to learn a language, start young. The brain is a lot different when you're younger. So as we had talked about, if you're 17 years old, you go to boot camp. And as we all know, that boot camp breaks you down to build you back up. Now, I can't speak on boot camp now, and I won't talk about that, but you know what it was like. Clem knows what it was like. I know what it was like, too.
I ain't had me none of them pink cards. Do they really think the enemy's going to do that? Oh, well, we're going to interrogate you, but here, make sure you have the adequate number of cards in case it gets too rough. I mean, seriously, right?
That is true. It's very, very true. It is the Army is an ever-changing dynamic. The DoD, the Armed Forces as a whole, absolutely. But to your question, to your point, no, it's great. I love the conversation.
See what it did to me.
Yeah.
That's no joke, though. Yeah.
So I often joked, about basic training, and I don't want to use the term brainwash, but it builds you, it molds you, if you will. So you have a 20-year-old that maybe came from a great family, maybe a not so great family. I know back in the day, Clem, you could probably talk about that. Either go to war or go to jail type thing. So there was a different dynamic back then too. But that still exists today. Different socioeconomic classes, different cultures, different races. Everything. So you're built to be that soldier, like you said about or airman or a Marine. So the cards again, I've dealt with some of the younger generation as well. I don't know about the cards. I do know that they can have cell phones now down there, but I know I didn't have my cell phone now. I waited in line with the rest of the Joes, waiting for the payphone.
I'm gonna tell you something really funny. And when I graduated basic training, and they had your families can come and whatnot, and I was actually I was at Fort Dix for basic, but then on to AIT. And when we had graduation at AIT, I'm standing there, and I'm looking at all these guys, and their families come out, and they're at the parade grounds and all that. And I'm standing there. So finally, I just decided I had to borrow one of my buddies, battle buddies. I borrowed his sister to be my family, and so hey,
Yeah,
yeah,
certainly.
why did I bring that out? I don't know, but we'll get to it.
Absolutely, certainly. So you have a 20-year-old, or a 20-something-year-old, or 17-year-old, or 18-year-old. You could always do the split up for basic and AIT, and everyone takes something different from it. From basic training, from AIT, from that brotherhood, from that community. Seeing a different culture. Lebanon is diverse in its sense, but I had never met someone from Oregon, Guam, Oklahoma. So you see different perspectives, and it gets ingrained into your head, because your brain is still developing. And so when that re-enlistment does come up, whether you're 20 years old or 23 years old, your brain is still developing. So you can still look back at what you had in your adult life, be it short adult life at that point, and you can say, yeah, I can re-enlist one more time. So there is definitely a psychology to it, because you can learn different things. You're hungry for different things. So again, that's a message to our listeners, as well as some of the parents that are pulling their hair out, like, my 19-year-old's an adult, what's going on? It's like, well, that impulsivity, the impulse control, all the things that suffer when we drink alcohol, which we won't talk about, but yeah, all of those things, they're still developing. They're not done until the mid-20s. So by the time someone is, hypothetically in my case, 6 by 6 is 12 years. So now I'm 29 years old. Granted, I'm full time. I've already got 12 years down. Why not re-enlist again? Because it's what I've known. It gave me structure. Almost to a point of obsession, I always buy 2 of everything, because as we know, 2 is 1 and 1 is none. So in the military, but yeah, it has definitely shaped me in that way, and that helped me, along with some other things, PTSD from my deployment, personal issues, familial issues. So that's why I was very curious of the psychology route and trying to better understand. And I had said about the air quotes of the brainwashing, and I think I made this joke to you, is I was having a conversation with a friend of mine, a warrior companion, battle buddy, whatever they call them these days, and we were in uniform, and he's like, no, that stuff doesn't stick with you, it doesn't. And then out of nowhere, I just yelled, "At ease!" And as we know, the top walks in, the sergeant major walks in, the first sergeant, whatever, and he quickly shot up, and he's like, "There was no one there." I said, "But you got up, didn't you?" So right. There's just something about that. And I even said to you about that, like, it's still trigger in a good way. It still sparks something, because it's that muscle memory. It's being ingrained. And another big thing, we talked about the child's brain, but the adult brain, repetition is the key to adult learning. I believe that was Zig Ziglar, or Lil Wayne, I think, used it in a rap song too. But repetition is the father of learning. Repetition is the key to adult learning. So, and that's why it's very important that not practice makes perfect, but perfect practice. Yeah. Absolutely. And that's
either Zig Ziglar or Tom Hopkins.
Yeah, I believe. Yes, absolutely. And we'll talk a little bit more about the medic training, but that's what I would always tell my students, is I would ingrain that into them, to the point that some of them called me a parrot, because repetition is the key to adult learning. And another thing in that same vein is we never rise to an occasion. A lot of times people say, like, "Oh, well, I'll remember on the test," or "I'll know what to do in that situation." It's very important to recognize that we only fall to our highest level of education. And it's what we know. It's what we've practiced, that perfect practice.
Can't possibly reach beyond what you don't know.
Exactly. And that's a whole child psychology thing with Lev Vygotsky in the zone of proximal development, which I do think in a way does carry on to adulthood. The company you keep, the things you do. You don't become a karate master in one day. You don't become a good soldier in a day. You're going to make mistakes. You're going to learn from them. But it's also important, as we talk about veteran suicide intervention, it's always important to learn from our victories too. We never take the time to say, and especially in the military, like, that was good. What's wrong with being good? So, we always say, oh, I messed up, I'll remember for next time. Will we though? I mean, we may, but what about what we did good? What about saying, hey, you did really well today? I could have been better. We can always be better. I mean, we'll never be perfect, but we could always be better in that sense. And it's very important. It's important to hunt the good stuff, as they say in the Army. You got to find the things that work. Absolutely, you got to do that. You got to find that good. You got to reward yourself. You have to recognize, because that is how we learn. We have that self-preservation.
Yeah, there's like the positive reinforcement,
exactly,
which is what you're talking about. Which is, there. Excuse me. There are generations that thrived on negative reinforcement.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the contrast is like between a happy person and an unhappy person.
Exactly. Yeah.
It's such a game changer. And yet the folks that believe negative reinforcement is the right way to raise your child really believe that. They have they think it's so foreign to think otherwise, like to praise someone, to give them an attaboy. And it's like, wow, if one is fortunate enough to break away from that, and not allow that to be the main influence. It'll always be there, but not be the main influence, to see the difference and realize, wow, life can really be positive, can be good, can be happy, can be enjoyable, not all about what a mess up I am. Of course I won't do that, right? I never do, that type of thing. And it's just, to hear you say that, it brings me back to a post that I shared from someone that I'd seen, talking about, a lot of folks will try to convince you that you're a bad person because they don't know how to handle their own oppression on you.
Absolutely.
And it's like, I put that post on Facebook a year ago, and it still circles around. It's I believe a spiritual principle that is that strong that people who need it are constantly seeing it.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I totally agree. And I'm not one to necessarily, being in the military, to praise mediocrity, because I always want to be better. But there's definitely another side to that. It's okay to be good. It's okay to be happy. It's okay to do your best. People always say, I'm going to give 110%. It's like, well, if you, first off, it's 110%. We know, I know there's some math majors out there. Well, it is technically possible, but even in the work-life balance with the military, and I'll get to that in a second. But to your point, is I am someone who's very positive. I consider myself, I focus on the positive psychology, the resiliency, things like that. And I'll tell you what, Sal, for the longest time, I did a disservice to myself, because when someone asked me, how are you doing, Jordan? I'm a 10 out of 10. I couldn't be any better. Well, I'm sitting in a cubicle doing Excel spreadsheets. So what that means is that is no different than me spending time with my family, being on the beaches of beautiful Jamaica, which I'm a huge proponent of Jamaica. Love Jamaica very much. Love to visit. So I always say I want to be a 7. I want to be a 7. And I'll tell you why. Because 7 is good. It's passing to C in most schools. And it gives you room to grow. If you start your day at a 10, you can't really go from there. But a 7, you can go up. But you can also go down. If you fall to a 5, all right, it was still a half and half kind of day type thing. But if you're at a 10 and you have that mindset of always being a 10, there's that danger of positive psychology. Because what happens if you're at a 10 and you fall to a 5?
Miserable. Absolutely miserable.
You're in a crisis.
Yeah,
You're right in a crisis. Yeah, because you're like, oh my God, this whole day has gotten away from me. But if you go from a 7 to a 5, you can still come back to a 7 and still be fine. But if you fall down to, you get bad news, you get something doesn't go your way, a computer's not working, because the Army loves technology now. So I like to say that the 7 aspect of it, and getting back to that 110, 100%. I know I've kind of touched upon it, but if something consumes you, if you're filling that bucket 100%, you have nothing left in the other bucket, right? So by the time you go home, by the time you see your family, by the time you have good things, so I caution people to say, I'm going to give 100% at work. You can give 100% at 50%, but especially for a guard guy like me, I mean, I go home, I have family. So if I've emptied out that bucket, I've given my 100%. What do I have left to give? And all that does is perpetuates the problems. And like we had said about behavioral health, which I know we'll talk more and more in depth about, but yeah.
That was so huge.
Thank you.
That was so huge. I'm going to ask you to talk about that very briefly again.
Okay.
Tell us about giving 100% and trying to maintain that 10 out of 10 versus being a 7 and getting home to have something left over for your family, your kids.
Absolutely. Yeah, certainly. So so when I talk resiliency, when I talk suicide prevention, which I'm sure we'll probably dedicate a whole session to that. So teaser alert there, but I always end my briefings by bringing the trash can up and I put it in the middle of the room. I said, so we've all sat through here. We all have some high highs and low lows in the military, in civilian life too. We all do, but there's that trash can there. Because the first thing everybody wants to do, whether they're wearing the uniform or wearing a Hershey Foods uniform or wearing a hazmat uniform, whatever it may be, first thing we're going to do is let me tell you about my day, and then you just unload and you unload and unload. Is that really any different, Sal, than just taking that trash, that army trash, home with you? Your spouse, your kids are going to say, what'd you do that for? You wouldn't do it. It wouldn't make sense. I mean, unless you have a refuge business from Grady Holloway. But
Right.
I digress. But I think that's an important part of it too. And I think that ties into the 100%. If the military becomes 100%, if anything becomes 100%, collecting stamps, nothing wrong with collecting stamps, but if that consumes your life and you're just talking to people and venting, like, oh, I missed a bid on eBay with my stamps. Like, you want to
My
care.
birthday party, and
It's
you're
my
talking about buying, stamps on eBay.
Yeah.
That type of thing. Right?
Exactly. Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Certainly.
Okay.
Certainly. So it's a good balance. It certainly needs to be a good balance. And personally, it's affected me. I mean, I'm not ashamed to say. I mean, I get along with my former spouses, but I have been divorced twice, and I'm not putting that on the military. I'm putting it on myself, being consumed with the military. It became everything. I mean, I took my computer home every day. I was fixated on it. I needed to be the best. I needed to give 100% all the time. And I needed 100% of my time dedicated to that. And that left no room for anyone else or anything else for that matter.
Jordan, this is the beauty of the show. The huge things that come out of our discussion. This is an avenue that had not even been planned, but yet it is so relevant. It is so relevant, and I venture to say, somebody listening and watching the show today, this has just changed your day, and changed the rest of your life with your family. We're going to come back to this. We're out of time, unfortunately.
Oh, okay.
But I'm seeing the importance of this and how beneficial it can be to help other folks.
Absolutely.
And stay with us, folks, because I'm thinking very seriously about adding Thursday show to our schedule, because this information needs more than just a half hour. We gave it like 45 we had for the show today, but I want to make sure that we have enough availability to let folks have this information, because it's life changing.
Yeah.
So thank you, Sergeant First Class Purcell. We didn't even get to talk about the exiting the service yet. Right?
It was a good intro. This could be the epilogue, I guess, or the intro. But yeah, if I may say one more thing,
sure,
and
absolutely.
then you can close it out. So, looking at the audience, looking at you, Sal, Clem, most of us have been on an airplane. If you haven't, there's something that they say on the airplane. They tell you to put your mask on first before helping anyone else. And I think that's a very important thing. I think that is part of that set. It's not selfish for self-preservation. So remember, we have to put our mask on first. We can't fill from an empty cup. We can't help anyone else if we're out of commission. So take time, self-care, awareness, self-actualization. There's nothing wrong with that. There's absolutely nothing wrong with that. Or else, you'll be a 10 out of 10 and not even know you're a 2. So, and you'll just be living.
Be a 10 out of 10 staying by yourself.
Exactly. That's very true. And you're just masking other things. And masking is a whole other thing I'd like to talk about. But in the sense of the oxygen mask, is put your mask on first.
Thank you, Jordan.
Absolutely. Thank you. Thank you for this opportunity.
This has been fantastic. I invite you next Saturday when we do Saturday Morning Live, the afternoon edition at 4. Tune in again, Facebook, YouTube. And these do upload, our shows upload to YouTube. So they're there. You can visit youtube.com/ at Sal Santori 2880, and you'll find probably about 80 shows that are on there right now. Feel free to go through them and take a look. But our guest, Jordan Purcell, has been fantastic. We're going to be doing at least a 4-part series at this point, because the experience and the information and the being able to present it is just far too great. We really appreciate you coming here and talking with our audience.
I'm absolutely honored. Thank you, Sam.
And Clem, thank you, brother, so very much.
Thank you,
for
Clem.
coming on, for being part of the studio audience. Thank you all. And as always, please find